The elegant woman in the designer suit paid her bill and left without a word, but the note scrawled on the receipt made my knees buckle. You never knew who the woman you truly loved was. It was signed by Veronica Harrington, the one person I thought I'd buried in my past forever along with the truth about myself. My hands shook so hard the paper crinkled, and for a second the entire bistro blurred around me. The clatter of plates and murmur of Seattle lunch hour customers fading into white noise. I had spent 3 years convincing myself that chapter was closed, that I was Remi Thompson, happily married to Alex, running Remi's Haven with the kind of quiet stability my parents praised every Sunday call. But one line in black ink had ripped the lid off everything. I stared at the looping signature, the same confident slant I used to trace with my fingertip on dorm room notebooks back at the University of Washington. Veronica. She had walked in 20 minutes earlier wearing oversized sunglasses and a charcoal pantsuit that screamed money, ordered the grilled salmon special like any tourist, and never once met my eyes. I had served her myself because my only waitress called in sick, and something about her posture had tugged at my memory, but I pushed it down. Billionaire CEOs didn't eat at hole-in-the-wall bistros in Capitol Hill. Except this one had. And now she was gone, leaving behind the kind of bomb that doesn't explode with sound but with silence. I slipped the receipt into my apron pocket and forced a smile for the couple at table 4. But my mind was already spinning back 6 years to the rainy afternoon I first saw her in the campus library. She had been arguing with a librarian about an overdue thesis, voice low and precise, dark hair falling across one shoulder like she owned gravity itself. I was a scholarship kid from a conservative Ohio family, majoring in business because it sounded safe, and she was Veronica Harrington, heir to a tech fortune, already interning at her father's company. We collided over the same copy of The Price of Salt, both reaching for it at the same time. She laughed first, that rich, unapologetic sound, and said, "Looks like we have the same terrible taste in tragic love stories." That was all it took. We became study partners, then late-night coffee runs, then something neither of us named out loud until the night she kissed me under the cherry blossoms in the quad. It wasn't fireworks. It was quieter, scarier, the kind of kiss that rewrites your entire future in a single breath. For 2 years we lived in secret, stolen weekends in her off-campus apartment, whispered promises that we would figure it out after graduation. But her family found out. Her father threatened to cut her off completely, to ruin any chance she had at the CEO seat she had been groomed for since birth. Veronica chose the empire. She left a note then, 2 shorter, colder. "I can't drag you into this war." I never saw her again until today. The lunch rush ended and I locked myself in the tiny office at the back, unfolding the receipt again under the desk lamp. The words hadn't changed. My phone buzzed. Alex, asking if I needed anything from the store on his way home. Sweet, steady Alex, the man my parents introduced me to at a church picnic 3 years ago. The man I married because it was easier than explaining why I still woke up reaching for someone who wasn't there. I texted back that I was fine, then stared at the screen until it blurred. Fine. What a joke. That evening I closed the bistro early, something I never did, and drove the 10 blocks to our apartment in the rain. Alex was already home, stirring pasta sauce and humming along to the radio. He kissed my cheek without looking up, asked about my day, and I lied through my teeth. Inside my pocket the receipt burned like a brand. I told myself I would throw it away, forget Veronica had ever come back, keep being the wife and daughter everyone expected. But when I changed into sweats and caught my reflection in the bathroom mirror, I saw the same scared 20-year-old who had cried for months after Veronica left. Nothing had changed. I had just gotten better at pretending. The next morning the note was still in my apron when I opened the bistro. I told myself it was coincidence when a sleek black Mercedes pulled up outside at 10:30, but my stomach dropped the second Veronica stepped out. No sunglasses this time. She walked straight to the counter, those green eyes locking on mine for the first time in 6 years, and said the last thing I expected. "We need to talk, Remi, before you decide to keep living the lie you married." Her voice was exactly the same, low and commanding, the kind that made boardrooms listen and made my pulse race even now. I glanced around the empty dining room, grateful the breakfast crowd had thinned, and jerked my head toward the office without a word. She followed, heels clicking like countdowns on the hardwood. The second the door clicked shut I rounded on her. Years of swallowed pain rising like bile. You don't get to walk in here after 6 years and call my marriage a lie, Veronica. You left. You chose your father's money and your perfect straight image over us. She didn't flinch. Instead, she leaned against the desk, arms crossed, looking every inch the billionaires of the magazines worshipped. I chose survival. My father didn't just threaten to disown me, he threatened to expose you. Your scholarship, your family's church, everything. I thought if I disappeared you could move on and be safe. Her laugh was bitter. Clearly I was wrong. You moved on straight into a cage. The words hit harder than any slap. I sank into the chair, the receipt still clutched in my fist. You don't know anything about my life now. Alex is kind. He doesn't ask questions. My parents finally stopped looking at me like I was broken. The bistro is finally turning a small profit. I'm stable. Stable, she repeated, tasting the word like it was poison. Is that what you call waking up every morning wondering what it would feel like to be touched by someone who actually sees you? I watched you yesterday, Remi. The way you moved around the tables like you were afraid to take up space. That's not stability. That's surrender. I wanted to scream at her to get out, but the fight drained away the second she reached into her briefcase and pulled out a slim folder. Inside were printouts, articles about my wedding announcement, photos of Alex and me at family barbecues, even a blurry shot of me crying alone on a park bench last year that some private investigator must have taken. I never stopped checking on you, she said quietly. I told myself it was guilt, but the truth is I never stopped loving you. And I think you never stopped loving me either. The silence stretched until it hurt. Outside, Seattle traffic hummed like nothing had changed, but inside my chest everything was cracking. I thought about the nights Alex held me while I pretended the tears were from work stress. I thought about my mother's voice on the phone last week. When are you two giving us grandkids, honey? You know how your father worries. I thought about the way Veronica used to look at me like I was the only real thing in her world. I can't do this, I whispered. I have a life. People depend on me. Veronica stepped closer, close enough that I could smell her perfume, sandalwood and something sharp, the same scent that used to linger on my pillow. I'm not asking you to blow up your life today. I'm asking you to stop lying to yourself. My company is acquiring property on this block. I could make sure Remi's Haven survives the development, or I could let it get swallowed. But that's not why I came. I came because I finally have the power to protect you instead of running. The question is whether you're brave enough to let me. She left the folder on the desk and walked out, the door closing softly behind her. I sat there for a long time, staring at the papers that proved she had been watching my every move while I tried so hard to forget her. When Alex texted asking what I wanted for dinner, I stared at the message until the screen went black. For the first time in years I didn't know how to answer. That night I told Alex I had a migraine and went to bed early. In the dark I pulled the receipt from my nightstand drawer and read the note again and again until the words blurred. You never knew who the woman you truly loved was. Maybe Veronica was right. Maybe I had never known myself at all. The next 3 days passed in a haze of forced normalcy. I smiled at customers, balanced the books, kissed Alex good morning like nothing was wrong. But every time the bell above the door jingled my heart lurched, half expecting Veronica to walk in again. She didn't. Instead, a courier delivered an envelope at closing on Thursday. Inside was a single keycard and a note in her handwriting. Penthouse suite at the edge. Midnight. No pressure, just truth. Come or don't. But decide for both of us. I almost threw it away. Almost. Instead I told Alex I was meeting a supplier late and drove across town with the keycard burning a hole in my coat pocket. The edge was one of those glass and steel towers that screamed new money, the kind of place my parents would call sinful. The doorman didn't even blink when I showed the card. Clearly Veronica had cleared me. The elevator ride to the 42nd floor felt like ascending into another life. She opened the door in yoga pants and an old UW hoodie I recognized from college, hair loose and face free of makeup. For a second she looked like the girl who used to steal my fries and argue about books until sunrise. Then she stepped aside and the penthouse unfolded behind her. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the glittering city. A dining table set for two with food I knew she hadn't cooked herself. I figured you wouldn't eat if I didn't make it look casual, she said, voice softer than at the bistro. We sat. We ate. We talked around the edges of everything until the wine was gone and the city lights blurred into streaks. Then she asked the question I had been dreading. Why did you marry him, Remi? Really? The truth spilled out before I could stop it. Because after you left I went home for Christmas and my mother found the letters you wrote me. She cried for 3 days straight, told me I was going to hell and taking the family name with me. My father stopped speaking to me. When I came back to Seattle I was so tired of fighting. Alex was safe. He never looked at me like I was wrong. He just accepted the version of me I showed him. Veronica's eyes glistened but she didn't cry. And now? Do you still want safe, or do you want real? I stood up so fast the chair scraped. You don't get to judge my choices. You walked away when it got hard. You built an empire on the same lies I'm living. I know, she said simply. And I've hated myself every single day for it. But I'm here now offering you a way out. My legal team can handle the PR if it leaks. I can buy this whole block and make sure your bistro thrives. I can stand beside you when your family turns their backs again. The only thing I can't do is force you to stop hiding. The offer hung between us like a lifeline and a noose at the same time. I thought about Alex sleeping in our bed, trusting me completely. I thought about my mother's voice warning me that those people destroy families. I thought about the way my heart had felt alive for the first time in years the moment Veronica's eyes met mine across the counter. When I left the penthouse at 3 a.m., I still hadn't given her an answer, but the keycard was still in my pocket. The next morning Alex noticed I hadn't slept. He made coffee and asked if work was stressing me out. I looked at his kind face and felt sick with guilt. I'm fine, I lied again. But the word tasted like ash. Veronica had cracked the foundation, and every day the crack spread wider. The first crack became visible on Saturday when my mother called. She never called on weekends unless something was wrong. Your cousin saw a picture online, she said without greeting. Some gossip site. A woman leaving a fancy hotel at 3 in the morning. They think it's you, Remi. Tell me it's not. My blood ran cold. I hadn't noticed any photographers, but Veronica's world came with lenses everywhere. I stammered something about a late supplier meeting and hung up before she could press. 10 minutes later my phone exploded with texts from my sister. Mom's crying again. What are you doing? I turned it off and spent the rest of the morning burning toast and snapping at my staff. At noon Veronica walked in again, this time without the disguise. She ordered nothing, just sat at the counter and waited until I had no choice but to face her. They know, I whispered, sliding her a glass of water like it was normal. My family saw something. Her jaw tightened. I have people who can kill the story. Say the word and it disappears. That's not the point, I hissed. The point is I'm married. I have a life I built without you. One conversation and suddenly everything is falling apart. She leaned forward, voice low enough that only I could hear. That life was already falling apart, Remi. You just stopped noticing. I'm not asking you to leave him today. I'm asking you to stop punishing yourself for loving me. Come to my place tonight. We'll talk strategy. Nothing more. I almost said no. But the alternative was going home to Alex and pretending I hadn't been lying for years. So at 10 p.m., I told him I was meeting an old college friend and drove back to the edge. This time we didn't eat. Veronica had printed documents, non-disclosure agreements, PR plans, even a mock press release about 2 women in business partnering on a community project. She had thought of everything except the one thing I couldn't escape, my own heart. We ended up on the couch, knees touching, talking until the sky lightened. She told me about the years after she left, therapy, boardroom battles, the night she came out publicly at a gala and watched her father walk out without a word. I lost half the family money that night, she said. But I gained myself. I want that for you too. When she kissed me it wasn't planned. It was soft, questioning, the kind of kiss that asks permission and gives absolution at the same time. I pulled away first, tears burning. I can't. Not while I'm still wearing his ring. She nodded, no anger, only sadness. Then keep the ring. But don't keep the lie. I'll wait, Remi. I've waited 6 years. I can wait longer. Just don't disappear on me again. I left before sunrise, the taste of her still on my lips and guilt heavy in my stomach. Alex was still asleep when I slipped into bed. I lay there staring at the ceiling, wondering how long I could balance on the knife edge between two worlds. The knife edge sliced open on Tuesday when Alex came home early and found the folder Veronica had given me weeks earlier lying on the kitchen table. I had meant to hide it, but exhaustion made me careless. He picked it up, flipped through the articles, saw the handwritten note on top in Veronica's bold script. "Whenever you're ready." The silence that followed was worse than shouting. "Tell me this is work," he said, voice shaking. I couldn't. The truth poured out in ugly, halting sentences: college, the love I had hidden, the way I had married him because it was easier than being the daughter my parents feared. He listened without interrupting, face paling with every word. When I finished, he sat down hard on the couch and put his head in his hands. "I knew something was missing," he whispered. "I just thought if I loved you enough you'd eventually feel it back." I never imagined. He looked up, eyes red. "Do you love her?" The question hung there. I wanted to say no to spare him, but the lie wouldn't come. I never stopped. He nodded once, like a man accepting a death sentence. "Then I won't stand in your way. But I deserve to know how long you've been pretending. And I deserve to tell your parents myself, because I'm the one who's been living with the ghost of her for 3 years. The fight that followed was quiet and devastating. No thrown plates, just words that cut deeper. He packed a bag and left for his brother's place, telling me to keep the apartment until I figured things out. The door closing behind him sounded like the end of the only safe life I had ever known. I called Veronica at 2 a.m. She answered on the first ring. When I told her what happened, she didn't celebrate. She simply said, "I'm coming over." And 20 minutes later she was at my door with coffee and no expectations. We sat on the floor surrounded by half-packed boxes and talked until dawn. For the first time I let myself cry without hiding it. She held me, not like a lover but like someone who understood exactly how much courage it took to burn your own world down. The next day the gossip sites ran the story anyway. Billionaire CEO Veronica Harrington spotted with married restaurant owner. My phone wouldn't stop ringing, my mother screaming, my sister begging me to deny it, customers canceling reservations. The bistro felt like a war zone. Veronica offered to buy the building outright so I wouldn't lose everything, but I refused. If I was going to fall, I wanted to do it on my own terms. That night I stood in the empty dining room after closing and realized I wasn't scared anymore. Terrified, yes, but not ashamed. The woman who had married Alex to please everyone else was gone. In her place was someone who finally understood the note Veronica had left on that first bill. I had never known who I truly loved because I had never known myself. The weeks that followed were a blur of lawyers, awkward conversations with Alex's family, and late-night strategy sessions at the edge. Veronica never pushed for more than I could give. She simply showed up, bringing takeout when I forgot to eat, sitting silently while I cried on the phone with my mother, who still refused to accept that her daughter wasn't just going through a phase. My father sent one text. "Don't come home until you fix this." I stared at it for a long time before deleting the thread. The bistro survived, barely. Veronica's team quietly funneled community grants my way without attaching her name, and loyal customers trickled back once the headlines died down. But the real change happened inside me. I started therapy, something Veronica had been suggesting for years, and learned to say the words out loud without flinching. I am a lesbian. I love Veronica Harrington, and I am done apologizing for it. One rainy Thursday evening Veronica came in after closing carrying a small box. Inside was the same copy of The Price of Salt we had fought over in the library all those years ago, now with a new inscription on the flyleaf. "This time we write our own ending." I looked up at her, really looked, and saw the woman who had risked her empire twice, once by leaving, once by coming back. I took the book, set it aside, and kissed her the way I had wanted to since the day she first walked in as a stranger. There were still battles ahead. Alex filed for divorce without asking for anything, but the settlement talks were brutal. My family remained radio silent except for the occasional guilt-laden card. Society still whispered. But for the first time the weight of those expectations felt like something I could carry instead of something that carried me. Months later, standing on the rooftop of the Edge watching the sun set over Puget Sound, Veronica asked me the question I had once been too afraid to answer. "Are you happy, Remi?" I thought about the price I had paid, the marriage, the family approval, the version of myself I had killed off to survive. I thought about the woman beside me who had never stopped believing I was worth the fight. Then I smiled, took her hand, and said the truest thing I had ever said. I'm finally becoming the woman I was always meant to be. Was it right to destroy one life to save the truth of another? Or did the pain we caused prove that some secrets should have stayed buried forever?